There you go.
Okay. All right. Are we good?
Yep.
Okay. Some more definitions. This one is this subsection's basically all about VEs, VEX. The NVEC, which is the top level, it's the National Volunteer Examiner Coordinator Group, I guess you'd call it. There are currently 14 VECs in the country, and they all are under the NVEC. The NVEC is the organization that kind of coordinates the question pools. So VEs or VECs can submit questions into the question pool, and uh, members from each VEC are part of that national VEC, and they, kind of vote on which questions to add, delete, change. That's kind of the top level organization. Um, each VEC has groups of volunteer examiners. Typically, they're associated with clubs, um, like the PCARS Club has. Uh, they used to have two. They actually did ARRL and Laurel, which are two different VECs. They've now switched entirely to Laurel. The KSC Club does ARRL. There's a bunch of online VECs. In fact, I had an interesting email from one yesterday from the Alaska ARC VEC, that they do online testing, and they had just passed somebody that was in the W4 area, and we're sending out a thing to welcome. I see a typo. Let's see. Administering VEs are those VEs that are actually participating, like grading, in the conduction of an exam. Typically, you have to have a minimum of 3 to grade an exam. In most cases, you'll have more VEs than that to uh, help if there's any questions, take paperwork back and forth, things like that.
But you're required three.
You have to have a minimum of 3. And I've had to do a session with 3. Sometimes everybody's busy. It's hard to round up 3. The CSCE, which you all have already gotten as a technician, is your certificate of successful completion of exam. It's a piece of paper that's good for a year that shows you passed one or more elements. The ULS is the Universal Licensing System database. That's where you go to find out whether you're um,
Astronaut.
whether your exam's been processed, basically. When you're going for your technician, that's where your call sign first shows up.
Mm.
Um, if you're doing a general or extra, you already have a call sign, uh, but it has to show up that you've now a general or an extra. And before that shows up, as a general, for instance, you can still operate immediately after you get the CSCE. You just have to append a /AG after your call sign, which says you're an acting general. Once it shows up in the database, you don't have to do the AG anymore. Sometimes we talk about, uh, especially in the exams, element 2, which is the technician exam, element 3, which is the general, and element 4, which is the amateur extra. Element 1 used to be the novice exam. There's no such thing anymore. Um, an indicator is uh, used to talk about appending letters or numerals after your call sign. So originally, when you were assigned a call sign, the number in the call sign was the region you were in. So we're
Mhm.
in region 4. So if you got your call sign, you took the exam here, you would get a W something 4, K something 4, N something 4. Since they started what they call vanity call signs, you can request a different call sign and it can have a different number. For instance, mine is W3 because there were no W4 RDLs available. So I have a vanity call sign. So I could do W4, W3 RDL/4 to indicate that I was in area 4, even though I had a
3.
3 call sign.
Hey,
And there's
Bob.
other things you can append besides just a AG or AE if you're extra.
Hey, Bob.
Yes,
So I got my tech, as you know, down in Florida,
right.
and now I'm living up in Massachusetts.
Yes,
So would it be appropriate for me to, when I use my call sign, to add the region that I'm now in?
you could certainly be valid.
Would it be helpful or useful or good for anything?
I don't know.
Okay.
Or you could have, spend $35 and get a vanity call sign with the right number,
Oh,
perhaps. But like I said, it would cost you $35.
and what for, really?
Huh?
The only benefit I could see for you adding the 4 or your new area to it would be the fact that your local people would know that you're local, and then your out of state people would know that you're out of state. I mean, it just helps
Yeah.
with location
Yeah.
as far as who you're talking to and where your information's coming from.
And also, if you were in a contest,
Yep.
uh, you know, they would think you're in Florida, which
Right.
they may or may not want to make contact with, as opposed to Massachusetts. So, you know, I mean, it doesn't hurt. You can do it perfectly
Mhm.
fine.
Mhm.
Okay, see, like I mentioned, there are 14 VEX currently. This is a list of some of them. Um, all VEs have to be accredited by a VEC. In other words, like for instance, for to be an AR or LVE, you actually have to pass a uh, open book 20 question exam and show that you're not a reprobate and all that kind of stuff. You're not a criminal and things. You have to be at least 18 years old. Uh, you have to be a general class license or above. If you're a general, you can be a VE, but you can only administer technician exams. You have to be an advanced or an extra to administer a general or extra exam. And like this says, if you've ever had your license revoked, uh, you can't, or suspended, you can't be a VE. You also can't do third party, which we'll talk about in a bit. You have to have at least 3 VEs to administer an exam, essentially to grade it. That's so um, you can catch others' mistakes, and that occasionally happens. Also, it means you got to spend 3 times as much money if you want to bribe the VEs. And like I said, you need an advanced or extra to do general or extra. Actually, that says you need advanced can only do general. That might be true. I'm not sure about that. I don't know if we have any advanced VEs around. Um, you also, as a VE, cannot administer an exam to a relative, your spouse, children, grandchildren, all the ones in the list, in-laws, nephews. I'm not exactly sure why. Um, Maybe it's to save you in
Favoritism.
case they
Yeah.
fail and they
Yeah.
blame it on you. We talked about CSCE. When you pass an exam, you get a CSCE that indicates the highest element that you passed. It's good for a year. Um, the other thing it's good for, in rare cases, you might decide the next day, for instance, that you passed the general, and you say, "Well, I'm going to go for the extra," and you take the extra exam. Well, the CSCE proves that you uh, completed the general, even though it's not in the database. And that's why it's valid for 365 days. It could also be useful in showing proof of higher grade license if you let your license expire, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And we talked about doing the AG indicator until you show up in the ULS. Your license is good for 10 years. There's a 2-year grace period where you can renew it. You cannot operate during that 2-year period. If you go beyond the 2-year, in other words, 12 years, you have to retake element 2, the technician exam. And if you pass, you will get credit for whatever your previous license was if you have some proof that you had, say, an extra license.
Did you
And if
say
you
that
have,
after 10 years, during the grace period, you're not allowed to,
correct, you can't operate during that 2-year period. You can renew your license without taking the exam. If you go past the 2 years, you have to take the element 2 exam.
got it, thank you.
And they usually give you some heads up, I think 60 days before your license expires. They actually won't let you renew it earlier than that. I'm not exactly sure why. But within that 60-day period, you can renew it and continue operating. Remote operation. That's where you can sit at home and operate your station, say over the internet, or somebody else's station. There are a couple groups. There's one called Remote Hams. I forgot what the other one is, where you can actually set up an account with them and operate somebody's station basically anywhere in the world. There's ones on there. one of the organizations that does that charges you so much a minute per operation. The other one is free, but it doesn't have nearly as good a stations available as the one that you pay for. However, if you are operating remotely and you say you want to operate a station in Australia, you have to have an Australian license to operate. If you're outside the United States and you remotely operate a U.S. station, you only need a U.S. license. Is that clear?
So if you are you physically your station's in the United States, you have to have a license for the United States. If you're
Correct.
in your station is in a different location and you are in the United States, it's your station location that has to have the license.
Well, if you're outside the U.S., you can
Mm-hmm.
operate a station remotely in the U.S. with a U.S. license.
Right.
If you want to operate a station outside the U.S., you need a license for whatever country that station's in.
Correct. So it's the station location that's required the license.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Can I ask if the people that have sailboats that sail around the world, uh, how does that work?
Well, in international waters, it's not a problem, I guess. Um, when you're in territorial waters, I would think you'd have to have the license for that country.
Well, I
That's
guess
an
I guess
interesting question.
UHF single sideband. I mean, because there's carve out marine channels, so I guess as long as you're using a marine channel.
Yeah, I don't know about those. I'm sure that's entirely different. It's an interesting question. Maybe I'll look that up. Nobody's asked that before.
That's good to know.
Bob, I
Yes?
was I was talking to someone just this morning and I said I was going to take this class and she said, "Oh, she thought you didn't need a license to operate a
Yeah,
ham radio."
Really?
you do.
Well,
Well, she doesn't, I mean, but that came from somewhere. And my answer had to do with radio frequencies. I said there are certain frequencies where you need a ham radio license. Was that an adequate answer?
All
uh,
frequencies.
well, she's confused. Even
I
for
knew that. I just wasn't sure my answer was adequate.
even for FRS or GMRS, you need a license. Now, GMRS, I think it stands for General Mobile Radio Service.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay your $35 for a license, but you do not have to take an exam.
I see.
And FRS, I think, is the same way.
What I think is that there's some confusion, and I've seen it on the internet too. It's sort of like a driver's license. You don't need a driver's license to get in a car and drive. It's just illegal.
Did you say you don't need a driver's license?
Well, I mean, a person can get in a car and drive it. It's possible to do that,
Well, yeah, but it's
but
illegal.
it's illegal.
Right. Well, it's the
Right.
same thing. You can operate illegally,
Exactly.
and you probably won't get caught
Yeah.
unless you're interfering with a primary service. And we'll talk about, I think, maybe on the next set of slides, the volunteer monitoring
I was
Right. Yeah.
thing where they can fine you and imprison you for those things.
yeah,
Right.
that's
And I did refer to that. I said there are people watching to see if people are following the rules
Right.
and operating without a license and not, and right, if they are not following the rules, or operating without a license.
I mean, if you were operating normally, doing all the things you're supposed to do, you would never get caught, even though you didn't have a license. I mean, you'd be using a fake call sign,
Mhm.
but as long as it seemed, I mean, you'd probably get away with it. If you
Yep.
start doing bad stuff, there's a good chance you'll get reported. And I remember there was a case a year or so ago, some people were blatantly interfering, and it was like $50,000 fine, and took their license away, and they were licensed.
And so there are ham radio people that go out and try to locate who's operating, right?
Yeah, that's the volunteer monitoring
Mhm.
thing.
Plus, when
Not
you're talking to someone, you have to identify yourself and your call sign. And if she doesn't have a call sign, she's going to be, they're going to, they're going to know.
Right. But, it's easy to make up a call sign.
Or use someone else's.
Yeah.
just not to put you down a rabbit hole, but is there back when the CB radio was so popular? I mean, it seemed like anybody could pick one up and talk on it. Could there be confusion on that? I don't know if there was like you had to be licensed or not, but I mean, I remember my uncle having one and him like, here, go ahead, and he just let us play with it.
Yeah,
So I don't know if that's the same idea that they're thinking about a CB radio back from way when, and there's a confusion between the different type, you know.
probably. But technically, you had to have a license for CB.
Ah, okay. I was
Yeah,
wondering.
I love that.
I was wondering because like I said, I just remember my uncle going, "Oh, here you go."
You didn't have to
Love
take
it.
any exam, you just had to
Yeah.
pay money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got a few questions. Who may receive partial credit for the elements represented by an expired amateur radio license?
Who may receive partial credit for the elements represented by an expired partial credit?
Alpha.
Alpha.
Alpha,
Okay.
what license examinations may you administer when you're an accredited VE holding a general class operator license?
Charlie.
Charlie.
Party.
On which of the following band segments may you operate if you're a technician class operator and have a certificate of successful completion of exam for general class privileges?
Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie.
I don't remember how that went.
It
Yeah.
was you just you
Just do your AG.
your AG status, yeah.
Who must observe the administration of a technician class license exam?
Alpha.
Alpha.
Yeah, Alpha.
When operating a U.S. station by remote control from outside the country, what license is required of the control operator?
Okay, so
Charlie.
mm,
Remember, you're outside the country operating a U.S. station.
Oh, I'm sorry.
but it says but it's a US station, so it's actually in the US.
Right,
But you're right, so you just need a US license.
correct.
So it's Alpha.
Alpha. Right.
Until an upgrade to general class is shown in the FCC database, when must a technician licensee identify with AG after their call sign?
Alpha.
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 Yeah.
Volunteer examiners are accredited by what organization?
Charlie.
Which of the following criteria must be met for a non-US citizen to be an accredited volunteer examiner?
Did you
Bravo.
talk about this?
Don't
I'd,
don't overthink it.
I'd say bravo.
Bravo. There weren't any restrictions
No, some
on
citizen, right?
citizenship.
Right.
Yeah,
You just
it's
had to be
all
18 and you have to have a general or above.
right.
All right. Okay.
How long is a certificate of successful completion of examination valid for exam element credit?
Charlie.
Charlie.
What's the minimum age one must be to qualify as an accredited volunteer examiner?
Bravo.
Bravo.
I'm not sure why, but I think it has to do with a legal, since you're signing a legal document.
Yeah, I can understand that.
What is required to obtain a new general class license after a previously held license has expired and the 2-year grace period has passed?
You have to retake the test.
Delta.
There you go.
Delta.
Yep.
When operating a station in South America by remote control over the internet, it really doesn't matter how you do it, from the US, what regulations apply?
Well, I thought it was Charlie, but I'm not clear.
I think it's got to be Alpha.
No, it's Charlie, I think. It's just where the station is.
Yeah.
Well, so if you're in the US and you don't have a license,
Yeah.
you can
If you
operate.
had like if you had an Australian license, you could sit in the US and operate remotely in Australia,
Correct.
a station in
Correct.
Australia.
If you have an Australian license.
The key
Yeah.
word is station. Your station, not you personally, not an operator's license, a station license.
Right.
But so a person that does not have any licensing whatsoever, can they remote dial up into a South American station
No.
and operate?
Well, legally,
Not
no. And these, like remote hams, you have to have a license in order to sign up for it.
I think they should rethink that question.
Say that again.
I think they should rethink this question because it's deceiving that.
Incomplete. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, basically what they're saying is if your station is not in the US, but you are in the US controlling it, what do the regulations apply? The regulations is the station has to be licensed and follow the rules of the country of wherever that station is, because it's the source it's promoting
Right.
what you're sending it.
You're just the control operator.
Right.
So they're, in essence, when you go through one of these remote things, they're delegating control operator authority to you, but the station license is in that country.
See, the question says what regulations apply,
Right. It's the
not
regulations of
what
the country
what
that the
your
station is
operating license
Yeah.
or whatever.
Well,
right.
it's the whatever the regulations are for the country that the station is in.
Right. Wherever that box is sitting, wherever that equipment is, that's what is being regulated by that country and has to have a license for that country and follow those regulations. You
Whatever
personally could be
whatever
anywhere.
their equivalent of FCC is.
Right.
So if it's Australia, for example, and Australia says if you're an control operator, then you have to have an Australian
See,
operator's license and also the station license, if they said the same thing that the US did.
Yeah, that's generally true.
Oh, okay, I get it now.
However, there are some exceptions. If there's a reciprocal agreement, like the United States and Canada,
Mhm.
where you can kind of do that, but that's for the extra exam.